Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. I know you all have been watching a lot of these interviews about elections, and you know that on the Republican side, all of these mainstream media outlets will ask consistently, will you accept the results of the election? And we've been wondering exactly what Democrats are doing in these states where we have Democrat secretaries of state, and they're changing the rules. In Michigan, you know, you've all heard me talk about Jocelyn Benson, who has changed the rules multiple times. Multiple times she has lost lawsuits. She has had to go back to the actual way that you have to do it by law. Now I have our former Secretary of State with me because I wanted to kind of break this down and understand it. It's as she said, it's wonky, it's in the weeds, but I think we need to understand as we go into Election Day what these secretaries of state are doing. They have said they're coordinating. So there's 7 different secretaries of state across the country who have said that they are coordinating on the 2024 election. It's a very interesting wording to use in the political world. And that's why I wanted to bring Ruth Johnson in. Ruth Johnson, right now, she is a current state senator in Michigan, but she is also the former Secretary of State. So Ruth, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be here, Tudor.
Oh my gosh. So I'm looking at all of this stuff and I see, well, first of all, I think a lot of people have questions about different states and why they may have more people on their voter rolls than necessary. And in Michigan, we have 7.9 million people of voting age, and we have 8.4 million on the rolls. So people are questioning, how does that happen?
Yeah. Well, first I want to address that because Jocelyn Benson changes things last minute, often doesn't follow the law, and even gave one of the Supreme Court justices $82,500 after she'd lost in 2 lower courts when she had things appearing there. It's difficult now to find good clerks, and we had some of the best elections. 1,525 local clerks who conducted the elections, more than any other state in the nation. You can hold your local clerk accountable. It's really hard to hold somebody accountable in the ivory tower in Lansing, especially when they're so partisan. I've just never seen anything like it. But I think our bloated voter rolls are really one of the key problems that we see right now. As of today, we have 106.5% of the eligible electorate registered to vote. Like, I'm not a mathematician, but 106.5 is not good.
And it's crazy.
And then she goes on to criticize Elon Musk for getting people registered to vote, but she did the same exact thing with Rock the Vote, and she actually did it right out of her state office, and she said that she let them help write the program. So these double standards and deceptions, and I would say lies, are going to make people wonder at the end whether it's a Democrat or Republican that wins. You have to have rules, and you have to be like a fair umpire. We have that even in high school football and basketball. We certainly should have it in elections. And she just does not want to clean the rules. She had 177,000 people she was supposed to take off in 2020, but she didn't until she got sued. And after that, she'd already sent them these invitations to vote. These are what she sent out, millions of them, over 800,000, to non-qualified voters, pre-filled out absentee ballot requests. If she really wanted to clean up the rolls at all, she would have made sure that she had return service requested, and it wouldn't have had an absentee ballot request in it that went to people that she already knew shouldn't get them. So it's very frustrating for me. When I was there, I took off 1.3 million people off our qualified voter file, and that was 642,000 dead people, 149,000 people had moved, and I did find 3,505 non-citizens. So it's very concerning to me that we have a Secretary of State that's so partisan.
So why has she come out and said, well, actually, the law states that you clean the voter rolls every 2 years, and therefore I can't actually clean the voter roll?
Well, I don't know. My count is she's been there 5 years. So she would have to explain that. She's had ample opportunity to clean the rolls and also help with a law that I actually worked with Candace Miller, previous Secretary of State, wonderful person in Congress. And now Lisa McClain, Congressman McClain, has a bill that's HR 2566. And that would just mean that when you surrender your driver's license at those DMV or branch offices run by Secretaries of State, in Alaska, it's actually the lieutenant governor, but you would surrender your voter registration card too. And that would really help, I think. But it doesn't help when you add people back on that have been taken off. You don't take off the people that you're supposed to until you get sued. And she's lost so many lawsuits. And then again, I'm very concerned about her donating money that she got from California, by the way, $600,000. She's only had 3 donors, and they're all from California. And then she used that money to donate to the Supreme Court. Well, she had...
So she's an Alex Soros Secretary of State. She is part of this group that's getting money from outside of the state of Michigan and these big donors who are very interested in taking over blue states. You hear about the blue wall states all the time. And let me tell you, from our perspective here on the ground, there is a massive amount of money coming into the state. It's not Michigan money. This is not Michigan donors. These are not people who are backing them because they like that what they see in the state, what these people have done. They're people from outside of the state who know if they win Michigan, they can take power in DC. That to me is incredibly dangerous, that she accepts that and then she uses that money to play politics herself inside of the state. And I would say, to your point about giving money to the Secretary of, or the to the Supreme Court justice candidate, that is even more nefarious than most people could understand, because she went out, she was challenged on taking RFK off the ballot. He wanted off the ballot. She said no. She took it to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals said, you know what, he can come off the ballot. You have the time. They're not printed. Take him off the ballot. Now, if you're in her position, I just want to ask you this, Senator, because if you're in her position and the Court of Appeals comes back to you and says, you know what, it's okay, take them off. At that point, are you playing a legal battle game, or are you just, as Secretary of State, saying, I have the legal opinion I need, I'm good, I can take him off? Because she then elevated that to the Michigan Supreme Court. The Michigan Supreme Court said, no, you can leave him on, which benefits the Democrats, we all know. And then she paid them after the fact.
Yes, you're exactly right. I did turn her into the Attorney Grievance Commission because, in fact, the deadline had already passed. It had already been certified with the lower courts. And, she uses that for one way, but then all of a sudden it's not important for others. And, I think people want a nonpartisan Secretary of State. I was very proud of the people that I hired and worked with. We were very nonpartisan. And Michigan now has what I would call an operative for the far left. She doesn't follow laws. I came from a little teeny cinder block house, and I know you follow the Constitution, right? And our state laws. But here you have a Harvard law grad that just doesn't seem to get it. She pushed for early counting, and I raised objections because, who is watching those ballots every night? Who's opened them? And how do you find poll challengers that will take vacation time or time off work for a week? You have to have citizens that can tell you, yes, it was done right, for people to know and feel. And they deserve to know that we have integrity in our elections, win or lose. And so we're lessening the security of counting. And now she has the audacity to say that we won't even have the results now, when she said we would, that they would take longer. So she pushed for this. They pushed for these ballot initiatives that, again, lots of money from out of state. And when you watched it on TV, and I talked about it at a Republican event, people started clapping because they said, this will enshrine voter ID into our Constitution. But it didn't tell you in the thousands of words, and we get less than 100, I think it was 97 on the ballot, that it enshrines no photo ID, none. Mm-hmm. And so who can read down those thousands of words to figure that out when you have one side pushing with this out-of-state money that's telling you this will enshrine voter ID into our Constitution? And I find it very disturbing because it also enables people to register in the 14 days prior to the election day, and they can register without showing any ID. We had over 20,000 people that did last time, but we have no real-time system to check to see if they're eligible to vote or if they've already voted in another location that includes in our state, and we have nothing systemically to tell us whether they voted out of state. I've gotten all these complaints because people are getting their ballots sent down to Florida or another state, and I have big box of them here, over 400, but over 800,000 people got them that they shouldn't. And then she told the clerks, oh, you don't have to verify the signature. She's lost in every court, and she keeps doing it. It is against our Michigan Constitution.
We're still not verifying the signatures?
Oh, she keeps saying that, but finally went to the top, and but all the way through, she did not follow what the lower court said. So now we have a final on that. You must verify the signatures. And she's the one that when she ran said that is the gold standards to verify signatures. I think it's, photo ID too, but she said one thing and does another, and that's my concern. I don't mind if somebody feels differently than me, but be honest about it so people know what they're voting for. She says she helped with these Proposal 2 of 2022, which is, the early voting for 9 days and also accept overseas ballots that have been postmarked after Election Day. And it prohibits requiring photo ID for voting. Those ads were so deceptive, and the voters can fill out one absentee ballot application and receive ballots automatically in all future elections for up to 6 years. That's just not right. There's no common sense here. And if one side cheats, the other side is not going to stand idly by. It's just not right.
When you say the ads were deceptive, I mean, it's not even deceptive is like too nice of a word. It was just out and out lies. I mean, that's what blows my mind in these political ads. They can just publish brutal out and out lies. And it just blows my mind. You brought up 800,000. And I just want to say it's an interesting number because from 2014 to 2018, suddenly the Democrats consistently had 800,000 more votes than they'd ever had in the past. And that has stayed. They have always continued to have this sudden bump in 4 years' time of 800,000 more voters than they'd had in the past. That seems like such a giant number, especially when you look at, I mean, we're getting like 5 million people voting. 800,000 is a lot.
Oh, and you know what? It's not just about national elections. When I was the Oakland County Clerk Register of Deeds for Oakland County for 6 years, we had 2 times we had ties. We had many votes that were within 1 or 2. Every vote is so important. We used to have to flip a coin or pull one or not one out of a box that they couldn't see to figure out who won. It's so important. Every vote counts. And you're talking about a massive amount of votes that really people that got invitations to vote that they shouldn't have. And then I just found it interesting. At first you deny, then you minimize, and then you blame. That's a common political thing, I guess. But she's very talented at that. She denied, and I got gavelled down over and over, and I just kept talking in committee. I serve on the elections committee. I think there's like 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans, but I kept, when it got up to 103, now we're up to 106.5, but I kept asking. She does not show up to the committee meetings anymore. She, I guess, told somebody I was mean. I guess asking why at the time we had 103.5%.
How sensitive of her.
It. Pardon me?
How sensitive of her. I mean, pathetic.
Yeah, I know. She doesn't show up. Can't ask her questions. Not even her.
That's their style.
Presentations. And so then she minimizes and says, oh, that's not that big of a problem. And there's an article now that said bloated voter files don't hurt anything. Well, when you do this layering of taking off, we don't have to see a warm body once like we used to register. We just needed to see you once before you voted, whether registration or voting your first time. That's gone. Voter ID's gone, no photo ID. And then all these other things that are really wonky within the legislature that have been taken out. And then these horrible ballot proposals, horrible because they were deceptive. And you're right, my mama would have said those are big lies because they're made to make you think something in a way that's really without any integrity. in my opinion. And there is a group that is working very, very hard that's ultra left. They are the operatives, the extremists, and they're leading us down the wrong path because what people think counts. Did you know 83% of the people want photo ID? That includes every demographic, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. That's why they made those, $1 million ads and sent out flyers. This will enshrine voter ID into our Constitution. So,
do you trust the way she's run elections?
well, I'm really thankful that the local clerks conduct the elections. She's trying to bring everything up to the counties rather than our local clerks who have been known to be some of the best in the United States of America. We can hold our local clerks accountable. You had to have a precinct for every 2,999 people. That's been now made bigger because of so many people voting absentee. But she is the Harvard wonk of legal language and deception. That's my biggest problem. She gets people to buy in based on things that are just absolutely not true. And that's tricking people. I've always thought, if you don't agree with me, I'll try to explain to you why I think it's important. And if I can't get most of the people to agree with me, then I need to stop. That's not her. When you have 83% of the people, including all demographics and all political parties and non-parties, and you have these commercials that you support. I asked her in committee when she said, we're going to have somebody that looks over whether people are telling the truth or not. I said, well, what about those ads that said it will enshrine voter ID into our Constitution? She goes, well, we're not going to look at that. And that was her last time she showed up.
So that's interesting because I do believe, she ran on being nonpartisan. And I think this is something that nationally we need to look at. You've got these secretaries of state who are running on being nonpartisan and then running their own elections to higher office. Like if you look at Arizona, Katie Hobbs was Secretary of State, ran her own election to become governor. We know that that's Jocelyn Benson's plan too. She has made it clear that she will run for governor. As for the rest of the Secretary of State's office, from what I've heard from people on the ground, she has totally destroyed the organization in the process, that car dealerships struggle with the Secretary of State's office, that they have had terrible reaction from the Secretary of State's office. In fact, even driving schools, the driver's ed schools have said they're not going to expand in the state of Michigan because she has hindered their progress or shut them down because she is so inept at her job as Secretary of State. She's so obsessed with the partisan part of elections that the rest of the office has fallen into complete mayhem.
I get so many complaints, and I get so many people when I walk through Costco. They're quite nice usually. They'll tap me on the shoulder and say, "Wish you were Secretary of State," and they'd keep going. And people I've gotten because I still am elected, and I want to help people whether they live in my district or not. But this craziness of having to make appointments, I had good friends that he took some time off work and drove to our local branch office, and they said, "Do you have an appointment?" And he said, "I don't." And they said, "Well, you'll have to come back, in 3 hours." But there was only 2 people in there and 4 staff, it doesn't make sense. So yes, I think her whole thing was to get in to be an operative for elections. I don't think the other things mattered to her. And then I hired Democrats and Republicans because I hired the best of the best. She went through her executive team, I think 90% in the first year, and she's hired people that I believe, by and large, feel the same way she does, rather than let's have a decent discussion and why am I wrong and how is this best for people? That's really the question. But she really thinks in her brain that this is what's best for people, is having government tell us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and no transparency and a lack of checks and balances. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been elected since 1989, so I've seen a lot. I've never
actually, I want to ask you about that. I was talking about this earlier with someone. This new cult of personality that we have around elections is almost like we are obsessed with government, where we've never been obsessed with government. That's not the American way. It's not that you want government. You want less government. The American way is we the people, right? But whether it's Obama or Trump or now Gretchen Whitmer, it becomes this cult of personality, like this psychotic group that is obsessed with the Gretchen Whitmers of the world. And she's out there doing the social media, and Jocelyn Benson's doing the social media now, and they want to become it's more about them than it is about serving people. Do you think that settles down, or do you think I'm thinking, gosh, Gretchen Whitmer has taken this to such a bizarre extreme. When you look at this Dorito video and all of the stuff, the potato video, a lot of food videos now that I'm thinking about it. But when you look at all of these weird things she's done, now Jocelyn Benson is out there with Hillary Clinton. She's doing the social media videos too. Are they going to continue to try to make this cult of personality, follow us, we're the cool mom, we're going to be great for the state? Or is that going to go away?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we as citizens need to not be drawn to that for people that lead our communities, our school districts, our state, and our country. It's our responsibility. It's very entertaining, right? I did something entertaining to get people to go online to use our services that we did, expresssos.com, not to get reelected, not for any of this stuff. But we have to look at, why are people using this kind of television personality rather than the hard work? It's hard work to clean up the qualified voter file. I actually took off 1.2 million people when I was Secretary of State. 1 out of 6 I took off. It was hard work. I went to Washington and sat in Homeland Security with Janice Napolitanto's deputy, and they were very hard to talk with, I'll call it. But I finally found a way and left with the legislature, got them to pass something that said you must clean your files to get the dead people off with Social Security Administration. I did it twice a month. I thought we'll make a law once. If somebody wants to do it twice, that's fine. These are the kinds of things you need to look at. I also went to the Middle East. Benghazi broke out, actually, and I have she's 25 now. She was very worried for me. But I got a bill passed that said that she needed to set up a portal so that those are serving when you're in foxholes. And I went to 3 countries and ships and bases, and it is hard to vote. I didn't go to the foxholes, but everything else. And so we came up with a bipartisan plan. There were 5 of us that the Secretary of State, National Secretary of State Association had us go there. And they have very low voting percentages, and they're very impacted. So we all came up with, if you have a secure portal that they use with their common access card that's double authenticated and the highest military secrets go over, we need to set up a portal so they can vote. She fought me from day one to get that bill through. And I finally got it through, and she just won't do it. It was due for this election, and it's still not done. That might not be glitzy. It might not be something on TV that's fun, but that matters. It matters a lot.
You're saying Benson is fighting that?
She was fighting it all the way for years, and I finally got it passed because she said, well, other people overseas should be able to vote online too. We're like, no, they don't have a military portal. They don't have a common access card.
I think that is the problem here. And when they are getting these people who wouldn't typically vote, who are overseas, they're not living in the country. They've chosen to go elsewhere. I think people mistakenly believe, overseas voters are all military. The military folks have a secure path to vote. When they're talking about getting those other ballots in, those are people who wouldn't necessarily vote. They're not interested in the country. They don't live here anymore. They're not service members. This is a difference. How many years has Benson been working on this? Because you say you've been working on this, but this was before she was Secretary of State then.
Yes, it was. And
that's interesting.
Finally, when I got in the legislature, I had a little more pull and could get it done. But then I had a Secretary of State that was undermining me all the time because she wanted everyone. And here's the problem. We can't tell in the last days of the election, because you don't have to have ID. We never have to see a warm body. We can't tell if you're voting in Holly and Clarkston, much less, overseas, who's going to fly to Germany or Japan to see who voted and if it was correct or wherever somebody might be? It doesn't make sense. You're not looking all around, and you must have integrity for both sides, because half of us are not going to be very happy at the end of the election. So having integrity and security, but there is this long term, and it started when I was Secretary of State, of this far left group trying to strip out the integrity, little piece by little piece, the transparency, the checks and balances. And a lot of them are wonky. Like one of them is when the Secretary of State makes new administrative rules, they have to go through a committee called JCAR, which is a bipartisan group of legislators, and give the citizens a chance to comment on them. Well, she didn't like that pesky law. She got found in violation of it when she said you don't have to verify signatures. And so these are the kinds of things that she does. So they got rid of the legislature, because we're in a Democrat ball stadium, ball and umpires. And so she got rid of that pesky law. No more JCAR. So as citizens and as elected officials, we don't even know what her rules are going to be. It just.
So, but the thing I think that you said that has really disturbed me is that she's been working against our rules, our laws for years before. She's been planning this takeover of the Secretary of State's office for years. If this dates back to when you were Secretary of State and she was fighting you then, who is funding her?
Yes, it's ironic. We ran against each other years ago. Would that be 14 years ago?
Oh, right, because she ran and lost years ago.
Yes, and I did not want to run. It was a huge pay cut. I had a little one and a mom that was aging, and I didn't want to be away from home, and I kind of got talked into it. I was making $30,000 more as a county clerk register. I liked it there, but they did a poll, and I was the only one that showed that could beat her, and I still was not convinced, and then they showed me all the Soros information, and then I decided to run. And then 3 days later, I said, I don't think I should run. I got all these Republicans mad at me because there's been 4 others that worked on it a year. But I did, and I was very fortunate. People were very kind to me and thoughtful, and I did get voted in. And I did come from a little teeny cinder block house. It's not like I have a lot of friends with big money, but my mom had the best moral compass of anybody I ever saw. And I don't care, I don't care what party you are. A good moral compass is so important, and people first. It's like this thought has been somewhat mucked up, I think.
But think about what you just said. You really, truly, this is a time when you could actually be the average citizen and you could run for a position, and you ran that office well. You ran it for the people. This situation that we have with Jocelyn Benson, who has this big money coming from out of state, who has been after this office for years. She's had her eye on it. Now she has her eye on the governor's seat. This is a long-term plan on the Democrat side to turn purple states blue. But I think it's more nefarious than that. I think that what they're plotting is truly just if you look at the way she's run the office, this is not the American way. This is to get their way, to gain power for their people. And then I know you know what the bills are that you guys have been looking at in the Michigan legislature for the past 2 years. It's gone completely sideways. It's bizarre. It's also a piggy bank for the billionaires. I think that's the most disturbing part about what I've seen in Michigan in the last 2 years is the money that has just gone to the billionaire class for them to have their pet projects, and the people still pay their income tax every year.
Oh, it's really bad. And in regard to Jocelyn Benson, when we were running 14 years ago, she told one of my friends, I'm running for Secretary of State, so I'll have a podium to run for governor. So you're right. This has been a long-term. I was reluctant, but worked 16 hours a day, but I was a reluctant candidate at the time because I was the only one that could probably win in a race that was so important only because of her extremism and her not following rules or laws and being part of this ultra left. But I think the loopholes that we have in Michigan, we're rated an F for transparency. And I did serve with Governor Granholm for 6 years. Not Granholm. I did serve with Granholm too, but Governor Whitmer. And we were both in the House. I think we were there for 4 years together. Anyway, she said she didn't believe in dark money. No, we can't.
That's
Yes.
rich.
So the governor got $20 million in dark money. One person alone gave her $857,000. And we'll never know as citizens who got it. But you can bet that comes with strings. Nobody just gives $857,000 of dark money. And so I think that's one of our biggest problems. She got $400,000 from another anonymous donor. Michigan needs to beef up our laws for both sides of the aisle. We, as citizens, deserve to know, who are you getting your money from? And yes, corporate welfare has become a wonderful way to get rid of money that doesn't really work, doesn't help. And you can bet the people that vote on it, they probably do pretty good one way or another. And if you look at our state budget, we went from $57 billion when I started in the Senate to $82 billion in 5 years, and we blew through a $9 billion
surplus.
And half of it went to corporate welfare, and it really didn't create the jobs that they said it would. So why not roads? Why not education? Education, we're 43rd in the nation. Why people don't want to come here, job providers? We're 43rd. Kids deserve better. That's one of our most important jobs. And public safety, that should be another one too. I mean,
I just saw that Joe Biden is going to have a public apology to the kids that were in the Native American boarding schools. And I said, well, when's he going to have a public apology for the kids in Detroit? Because we've robbed them. They are not getting educated. They can't even read when they come out of school. It's sick that is not a priority for these Democrats to make sure that kids have the skills to have an actual life when they get out of school. The fact that they can't read means that they're that much more likely to end up in prison. I think it's a terrible catastrophe. And I will tell you, when I was running for governor, we had multiple companies that came to us and said, are you going to give us corporate welfare? Are you going to give us corporate welfare? And I always said, I have to be able to know what the deal is. I can't read any of your deals. They're all private. You've got NDAs across everything. Yeah. So you guys know, a few legislators know, the governor knows, but you're using our money. And so I don't believe that you should have NDAs if you're going to use the taxpayer money. Oh, they just went bananas about that. How could you possibly say that? We have proprietary information. We have to have these NDAs. And I'm like, Senator, you're right. They're not bringing jobs. I mean, we haven't had any, we have not gained a headquarters. We have not gained jobs. We are, as a state, dying. I mean, 43rd in education, no new headquarters, energy constantly going out. We have people that have blackouts for 2 weeks at a time. It's a mess, and we've got to do something about it. But honestly, I think that I've listened to what you said today, and I want people to think about what you said, because that young mom at home right now, who was you, is saying, is this God's plan for me? Because it's supposed to be we the people. Am I supposed to step up? And that was God's plan for you. You stepped up to the plate. It's hard. It is hard to sacrifice this and run and do all of this. But we so appreciate the fact that you did, and you have, and you continue to do so. And I hope your story inspires other people. So I just want to say thank you, Senator Ruth Johnson, for coming on today.
Thank you, Tudor. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com. You can subscribe right there, or head over to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.